GMGAGE. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are back for another episode of Cup of Joe with Web3 Joe. That's Web3 Job Ops and Events, your hub, headquarters, home base for all things Web3 talent and recruitment. They power these spaces. We are here every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, doing our best to fill this next 30, 40 minutes or so with as much value as possible. We do so by bringing on dope guests from the space who know what it takes to be successful professionally in Web3, to share a little bit of insight on how you can land your dream role here in the space. Today, we're very honored to be joined by none other than Mr. Daniel Dan the Meta. He's the founder of GM Factory, and he's also a maker for Caliber Money. Mr. Daniel Zo, how are you doing? Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, happy Wednesday, GMGM, and thank you for having me. And thanks everybody for tuning in. How's it
Of
going?
course. Of course. No, it's a pleasure to have you, man. I'm doing all right. It's Wednesday. The markets are not going up, is one way to put it, but it's okay. We're here anyway. How are you doing?
I am staring at my screen, crying a little bit, just looking at the markets. But it's okay. We've been through it before. We've done all right for ourselves, and we'll keep doing it again and again.
Exactly. We've done it before. For some crazy delusional reason, we're still here, and we'll probably do it again. And actually, I want to get into a little bit of the market dynamics and how that affects possibly folks listening and their job search today. But I did my best to give an intro. Can you go ahead and let the people know who may be less familiar, who you are, what you do, and how you got started doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So to do that, I'll take you guys about a decade back. Back when I was in law school initially, I was doing freelance writing on the side. I've been doing it for a couple of years at that point. But then one day, there's this guy. He messages me on Skype, says, "Hey, do you ever write about Bitcoin?" And at that point, I had only heard about Bitcoin once or twice, mainly from people selling skins in video games. Knew nothing else, but he offered me double my rates. So that was a very, very simple yes from my end. Uh, and that was a decade ago, and never did I become a lawyer. So I spent a couple of years at that point just writing for some of the biggest crypto publications. Mind you, the talent pool was super small, so if you could just prove basic competency and work ethics, you were in. Times have changed quite significantly since then, but I spent a couple of years just doing journalist work, and then I kind of realized that I wanted to be in the industry, not just reporting on it. And this was really a result of the markets changing, because back when I started, it was really just Bitcoin, Bitcoin mining, and Bitcoin legislation. But then ETH came around and things started actually happening. So I started working directly with projects, writing for them, and spent a couple of months to years doing that, and that led me to agencies where I started doing marketing. I had no background at that point aside from just writing and SEO optimization at most, but I got to learn from some incredible strategists, PR people, designers, videographers, and naturally, as somebody who always believed that the best thing you can do in life is to constantly, consistently face your fears, I eventually co-founded my first agency right as one of the previous bull markets was heating up, with three colleagues that I had. And we scaled from a team of four people, to essentially 10 people in weeks. It was chaos, but it was beautiful. Fast forward a little bit, I exited that. I started GM Factory, my current venture. And right about the same time, I also took on my first CMO role. So I was both a full-time CMO and also a full-time agency owner. So I was scaling my clients, but I was also fully responsible for scaling my projects, which went really big. Built a community of a few tens of thousands of people, and in hindsight, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was the best education I ever got. Uh, that would be the quick background. One thing I would say, and I want to call it out now just because it came to mind, but one factor that really drove me, and one learning that I keep seeing and I keep reapplying and I keep telling everybody, is to do your best to become a specialized generalist, which is somebody who understands the whole machine, not just one gear. Try to learn as much as you can, and yeah.
Become a specialized generalist. Can you expand on that a little bit and tell us a little bit more about what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So on my end, like to do marketing well, just speaking from my own experience as a marketer, but to do it well, you have to understand the whole spectrum of the market. You have to understand DevRel, you have to understand developers, you have to understand the communities, you have to understand founders, you have to understand fundraising, you have to understand how projects work, how to build them. And the more of this understanding that you get, I think that can be applied across any sort of industry or sub niche of Web3 that you might be interested in. So try your best to not only be decent at multiple things, but to be better than decent at multiple things. And that's when the magic really comes through.
Well said. Daniel, one more follow up question on that. How do you balance between being like a specialized generalist and being somebody who is an expert at a certain niche or thing? Like I know there's kind of two schools of thought. Either you dive in and be an expert and be a specialist, or you're kind of more of a generalist. How can folks listening make sure that they find a good balance between those two?
Your main job is what you specialize in. The time that you don't spend working on your main job, you spend learning about other things. And those other things then start compounding into knowledge that you can then apply to your main job and do an even better job at it.
Well said. Well said. By the way, I think there's a little bit of feedback coming from your mic on when I speak. So if you want to mute when I'm speaking, that might help. But all good. We will push forward. I appreciate that insight. What are some ways for folks listening who are interested to get their foot in the door professionally in Web3 to get that conversation started with a potential employer in the space?
Mic issue fixed, hopefully. Let me know if that's okay. But to answer your question, I think for me, what I realized is that warm intros are king. Full stop. You can do a lot with cold DMs and cold emailing as well. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if you compare that to warm intros are king. So I've tracked this for myself, and I close about 90% of deals that come through mutual connections, while cold outreach, has the remaining 10 to 15%. And it's really because the trust is already there when someone vouches for you. And I think that's where recruitment agencies like Web3 Job Ops come in as well, because there's that layer of additional trust that is created between you and a potential employer. But if you don't have that connection, I think the main thing that works is find and do your very best to provide value before you ask for anything. Because employers, they get dozens of messages that all look identical. Everybody says, I'm passionate, I'm hardworking, I would love to contribute. But when you get, 50 to 100 of these messages, it just becomes noise and you don't stand out by describing your value. But instead, you stand out by demonstrating it. So, whatever your job scope is, try to find a couple of simple action items that you could take. Do an audit. Try to, find a very specific area that you can provide value in without obviously spending months doing that, but just one very small example of value that is, designed specifically for the project that you're applying to, and try to create that value before you message, before you reach out, and they'll recognize you, and that conversation will go a lot smoother than if you hadn't done something like that before.
Yeah, some of my favorite advice is to do everything you can to turn a cold intro into a warm intro, right? And the best way you could do that is if you have a connection, but we don't always have a connection. And so the next best way you can do that is exactly what you just said: demonstrate your value up front, whether that be with content, whether that be with participation, curiosity, insights, one way or another. Demonstrate over just saying what your value is, right? How about when it comes time to actually have that conversation? You got a call in the books, and now you're ready to demonstrate your value. It's your time to shine. How can folks listening make sure that they make the most out of that conversation?
I'll answer this from a marketing point of view, just because that's my world. But I feel like a lot of the things I'm going to say can essentially apply anywhere. But first, like I've said, do the work. Find where they're weak, Maybe it's their Twitter headers not matching their brand. Maybe their founders' threads are underperforming. Maybe they have this really annoying bug if you're after a dev role that can easily be fixed. Just contribute that to their repo. And, that, by the way, I made this for you moment is essentially a cheat code because it shows agency before you've even been hired. But that's a really great way to start a call, by the way. But when it actually comes down to being asked things and answering them, I think it's really important you do your homework. I see a lot of people uh, cold applying to hundreds of different projects without any sort of preparation, and even when they get on calls, they're like, "So, what do you do? What does your project do?" And for me, that's an instant disqualifier. And I think one of the best things you can do, especially with with AI, since it's so readily available to everybody, use it to prepare and use it smart. So feed if there's a job listing, feed it into Claude. Ask it to generate like 100 possible interview questions, answer them, write bullet points, say them out loud, and feed them back to AI, and get it to pressure test you, get it to try to knock you out, and find ways to answer any sort of questions that might come up, and ask for feedback, ask for being ranked, ask for test scores. Really, uh, one other thing is I think it's really important to show you won't need hand holding. When I hire personally, and when I've hired in the past, when I feel like a person has an infinite number of questions, I appreciate their curiosity always. But if I have to micromanage somebody, hold their hand throughout the very process that they must learn and build and develop and deliver on themselves, it's going to make my work a lot more difficult. So I'm not looking for someone I have to manage all day. I want someone I can give a general direction to and they run with it. So if you prepare something unprompted, you're already proving you have that quality. And then one thing I wanted to add and expand on actually is just learning the project, understanding the founders, checking their Twitter, just stalking them, outright stalk projects and their founders. You can easily find them. It's not an excuse that you don't know what somebody thinks just because we're all so open on Twitter and in podcasts and YouTubes and so on. So do your homework. And I think that distinction matters a lot more than people realize.
Yeah, I think you're right. And actually, I think actually the expectation of you coming into a conversation knowing your stuff is, and actually it should be, and it is higher than maybe in the average Web 2 world, just because the information is so readily available here. I mean, it's here, it's available, it's on Twitter. You can reach out to these founders, these teams. They're also readily accessible, which is awesome and a benefit. But on the flip side of that, it's like if you're not taking advantage of that, it is almost immediately obvious, and there are going to be other folks who may get opportunities that you don't because of that. So make the most of it.
Absolutely.
What about when it comes to negotiation? I'm always curious to hear folks' different perspectives on negotiation. Obviously, for more entry level roles, you have less leverage, so take that into consideration. But what are some general tips you can give to folks listening on how to make sure that both sides walk away from a deal feeling happy and like they both got a win?
To just say the obvious, I think do your research first. Know the market. There are salary surveys floating around crypto. You can get salaries for literally every single role. Other people have done the work. Research agencies, interviewed hundreds of people working in crypto. You can find them, search for them. That's how at least that you're not getting lowballed. It's not like in Web 2 where you don't really know what the going rate is for a specific job. In Web 3, and if you don't know, you can discover. So if you go in to a call asking for $500,000 because crypto pays well, you will get laughed off the call. And that's even more true, especially now as rates have compressed significantly in this market. But if a project potentially doesn't have a lot of cash and if the offer isn't what you wanted, one thing that I did previously, and I think everyone should, especially if they have value to provide, is, and it also depends on the point in the life cycle of a company that they join at, but push for equity, push for tokens, push for ownership. And I think that framing really works because you can tell an employer, hey, ownership gives me skin in the game beyond salary. I can get salary somewhere else, but what I can't get is a chance to be a founding employee, not employee number 50. And that shows an employer that you want to think about this project constantly, not just on a 9 to 5 level. And that reframes the conversation from I want more money to I want to be invested in your success. And third, if you're asked to make an offer yourself, and I've been asked to do that quite a few times, projects sometimes shy away from giving numbers just because they're afraid to give people too much. And that's often the case with really well-backed startups. I've noticed a few examples like this, but I think if you make your own offer essentially as an interviewee, then back it up with evidence. Give them the survey results. Tell them what you've got paid previously. Just show them data and sort of try to convey how much more value you can provide, because each salary is an investment, right? And project needs to get more out of you than they invest in you. So I think those would be sort of the main things that you have to keep in mind, and then just use common sense and use your emotional intelligence to sort of gauge whether you can get more or you could get less, and just understand how good you are at something. Try to not overestimate your abilities, but try to not underestimate them either. Try to find a balance, I think.
Yeah, I think you covered all bases, right? Do your homework, come prepared, think about the offer holistically, right? What are you getting outside of salary? What benefits are you getting? What can you kind of negotiate on or consider to kind of fill gaps, whether that be token or equity? And of course, have enough emphasis on equity whenever you can, right? Ownership is there's absolutely no replacement for ownership. Um, amazing. And you mentioned, go ahead. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that with crypto, token equity, there are unique opportunities that aren't so readily available in Web2. So if they exist, and if this is the way the market works, seize them, take them, and that will inadvertently make you perform so much better, because you're investing in the success of a project. So if offered, take it. If offered, ask for it.
Well said. And you mentioned the job market. Obviously, we have Bitcoin at 72K, Ethereum at 2,100, Solana struggling to hold $90. I would love to ask you, Daniel, how would you describe the current job market, specifically as it pertains to blockchain?
Yeah, it's pretty tough, and it's tougher than it was during the COVID crash, I feel. One thing I'm noticing, there are a lot of hidden jobs that aren't openly marketed, and there are much fewer openly advertised jobs, because sometimes you see like hundreds of job listings every single day, but now you don't see as many, but there are hidden gold mines that you could potentially tap into. Uh, but then rates have compressed quite a bit, so you can't walk in expecting bull market salaries. Teams are leaner too. They've caught out a lot of the fat that used to be present. Projects are more selective. You see, you get to see a lot of really interesting projects building with super small teams. And I guess the 10x engineer narrative has really kicked off, because basic competency doesn't cut it anymore. Like the early days, you have to be a killer. You have to be, 10x, whatever role is it you're after. And I think the best teams to work in are teams that are lean and mean. But there's one benefit to the market being the way it is. One flip side, there's less competition from tourists. It's mainly people that have been in this market for a while that are applying to crypto jobs right now. So less noise means more opportunity, even if the overall level of opportunity from available jobs is smaller. But the people who stuck around through the bear market, they're serious, and that's your competition now. You have to really invest in yourself. So if you're still here, you're still building, you're still learning, you're already ahead of the thousands who left. Uh, but be active, experiment, be in the group chats, be in the trenches, be in the DMs, be part of where men shows. And I think right now more than ever, it's a relationship market and not as much of an application market.
Yeah, I appreciate you touching on both sides of that coin, right? I have conversations almost every day with folks, executives with all the experience, all the hard skills, and they're struggling. There is a lot of competition out there right now. But to your point, when the prices aren't so green, there aren't as many tours here, and that allows for more opportunity for the folks who do stick around, who really are passionate about the space. So that's one way you can leverage this context, this current market, to make the most out of opportunity for you, which was actually
Absolutely.
my next question. How can folks leverage this current context to make it work for them? Could you expand a little bit on like what you would do if you were looking to break into the space at a time like right now where prices are down, there's more opportunity for folks who are still here? What are some things that folks can maybe consider to make themselves stand out?
I think right now is just use all of the new and exciting tools that are available, because another previous sort of autumn or bear markets, crypto winters, crypto autumns, you didn't have these tools available. You couldn't code. You couldn't, use AI to build a lot of stuff like you can today. So this is prime time to just learn, build, showcase, publish, try, experiment. And the more of that you can do, the stronger of a quote unquote resume you'll have. And because there's not so many tourists, that means if you build in public, for instance, then a lot more people will get to see you. Your reach is higher now, even if you're a small account, than it would be during a bull market. And just doing that actively and consistently goes a long way, because projects are desperate for people with agency, for self-starters that don't need hand-holding, for people that can just do stuff, get stuff done. And, despite, team scaling down and firing people, being in a smaller team means there is more surface area for you to make an impact, which means that you can, shine a lot more than you would, working in a 150-person team. So you can get noticed, you can wear multiple hats, and you can get equity. And this is the time to build relationships as well. I think a lot of the founders and CMOs and just project managers and crypto people in general, they aren't being flooded with outreach like they were in the bull. So you can message influencers, you can message anybody, and just message them, send them message. Maybe they'll get back to you, maybe they won't, but the chances of them getting back to you are much higher now than they are in prime crypto peaks. And if you provide value now when things are quiet, they will remember you when things heat up. And I think that goes a long way to show that bear market credibility is real, because you can then say to anybody, I was building during the bear. And that carries weight. So use this time to build proof of work, ship things, contribute, create content. And when the market turns, you'll have a job, you'll have a portfolio, you'll have a network, and not just a simple resume.
Daniel, how can you tell if somebody was building during the bear? Do you know? They'll tell you.
They'll tell you, yeah, they'll go a long way to prove it to you.
Yeah.
Because if you get on a call with somebody and they're like, well, what do you do? Like, what are you working on? Hey, I'm just applying to jobs, and they're learning about crypto. Versus a guy who just sends you like 5 different apps and 2 videos and a portfolio website that they created. Big difference, I think.
No, yeah, it's so true. And I'm speaking firsthand because I am that guy. I mean, I got here in 21, and I'm very fortunate to have stuck around, over 23 and 24. And it was great. I think your advice is perfect. Upskill, educate yourself, and lean into those relationships, because now is the time where you have a little bit extra time to educate yourself, upskill, and then also other folks are going to be a little bit more available now that there isn't so many tourists here to pay attention to those who are really looking to deliver value, which is you, if you're listening and looking to break into the space. We are just well, we're heading towards the end of the show. I got a few more questions here for our honorable guest. For our closing section, Dan, my first question to start wrapping things up. What is your favorite and least favorite part of working in crypto?
Okay. Favorites. It's dynamic. It never gets boring. There's always something cooking. Like it's just so vivid. I think the overall experience of working in crypto, you get to talk to so many people. And like I talk to my friends sometimes who work like traditional Web2 jobs, and I'm like, how much do you interact with the industry that you're working on? They're like, well, I talk to my cubicle neighbor. I'm like, that's it? Do you ever meet the founder? Do you ever talk to like higher ups? I'm like, no, they're scary. We'd never approach them, you know? But being able to just talk to anybody in this market makes a big difference, I think. And that went on and built a really collaborative culture that is still around to this day, and I think it's getting even tighter, which is really great. And you get new narratives, you get new tech, you get things that have never existed before. And because crypto in its own way is sort of like a bleeding edge of tech, you get to be exposed to other innovations happening in adjacent industries to crypto as well. Like, we do a lot of AI, we talk about biotech, we talk about health hack, health maxing, we talk about mental health, we talk a lot about interesting things that I think people in Web2 industries don't really chat about that much. And people are fun, they're edgy, there's a lot of meme literacy. Everybody thinks outside the box, and yeah, you get to connect to people on a human level. That's my favorite part of this industry. Just beyond the cypherpunk ethos of crypto, like just thinking strictly from a job and employment point of view. Whereas, obviously, least favorite, I think it goes without saying, but it's the scam association. It's just exhausting to explain to everybody that it's not all Ponzi's and rugs. You're not an internet criminal because you work in this industry. They exist everywhere. They're just louder here because they make more money. And just fighting that perception is constant. And sometimes you lose before the conversation starts. But I think we still owe it to ourselves to try to explain to people that it's not what they've heard from the news. Like, there's a lot of good in this industry, and a lot of this good will go a long way in helping change the world for the better as time passes in the years to come.
Absolutely. You take the good with the bad. And I think your first point on the dynamics of this industry, how we are so adjacent with so many cutting edge technologies, whether it be AI or RWA or DPIN or prediction bets, which is a thing now, is adding credibility to the space in itself and kind of helping us fight that. We're just about at the end of our space. I got two more questions for you, Dan. Second to last question is, you've dropped so much insights in the last 30 minutes. What is your final piece of advice you would like to leave listeners with on either breaking into the space or advancing their careers in the space professionally?
Be a problem solver. That sole idea has helped me a lot in life, because whenever I find a small inconvenience, a small frustration, I try to find a way to fix it. And that expands your brain's capacity to, deal with stress and find solutions to everything. And if you build that skill of being a problem solver and having the work ethic to actually go through solving your problems, that is one of the most valuable skills I see in people. And if I am to mention a second one, is be not afraid. I think fear is the death of ambition. And I think that without ambition, you are stuck working the same boring job for the rest of your life. But if you're not afraid of change, if you're not afraid of trying new things, as a core characteristic of who you are as a person, you'll find it a lot easier to break into crypto, and not just crypto, but really in any industry, and to make an outsized impact in whatever it is that you choose to pursue in life.
Be a problem solver, and remember that fear is the death of ambition. You have a real way with words, Dan. I really appreciate all of the insights.
Started as a writer. We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. And here's the last question I got for you. For listeners, for those of us who have stuck around here and gained a lot of value from you in these last 30, 40 minutes, how can we better support you and all the cool stuff you're doing over at GM Factory?
Well, if you guys have questions, like applied questions, always feel free to slip in my DMs. I'm happy to support you, and you're supporting me by asking me difficult questions that I can crack and think about, which enhances my own path to growth. If you're building a project, obviously feel free to reach out to us for any sort of marketing services that you might need. We do writing, we do design, we do UGC, we do video, we do branding, we do PR, we do it all. If you can't afford it, we can find solutions and we can just provide advice. I feel like one of the most valuable things I've done is just provide value to people. So if you're trying to be a self-starter, bootstrap, grassroots effort, you can still reach out just to get advice. Happy to be a springboard for ideas with anybody.
Amazing. And I'm going ahead and pinning up a tweet from GM Factory now to make it easier folks to check out that page, show some love. Folks, if you're listening, make sure to follow Daniel. Make sure to check out the GM Factory account, see if there's any values, anything you can gain over there. I'm sure there is. And that has been our show, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate you stopping by, whether you're here listening live on X, listening to the recording on YouTube or Spotify. We hope to have you back next week. We're again here every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And Dan, one more thank you to you, man. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for your genuine insights and advice. I'm sure a lot of people gained value today because I know I did. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with before we get up out of here?
Thank you. Thank you all as well for listening, for tuning in, for the invitation. Really appreciate it, Gambler. One final scoop. Okay. As Steve Jobs said, one more thing. Demonstrate, experiment. That's it. Simple.
Demonstrate and experiment. Couldn't have said it better myself. Daniel, you're the man. I appreciate you, bro. Have a
Appreciate
great
it.
rest of your Wednesday. We're gonna stick through it together as we watch these charts. Hopefully, not go all the way to zero. And
Fingers crossed.
we wish the rest of you a great Wednesday as well. Thank you all for tuning in. That has been a show. We'll be back soon. Until then, y'all know the drill. See you next time.
Thank you, everybody. It's been great. See you around.